Hello everybody, CritCrab here with yet another Ross story. This one was an absolute joy to make. It is the tale of Ross being a pouty baby. But CritCrab, I can hear you asking, being a pouty baby is integral to Ross's character. What's so special about this one? Well, this, my friends, is a tale of Ross being a pouty baby and quitting D&D forever. Over not being able to play as his Japanese ninja waifu in Dungeons & Dragons. If you've never heard of Ross, first, congratulations, and second, I would recommend viewing the previous Ross stories for maximum enjoyment. But you don't need to hear the previous ones to be able to understand this story, as it is pretty straightforward. But again, if you'd like to catch up on the Ross stories, I'll link them up there in the corner or in the description. That aside, roll post. Before we get any further, I need to clarify something. Ross is white. Ross is painfully white. I'm like really white, but compared to Ross, I may as well have been a mix of every ethnicity that wasn't white. All right, and all white, now that's been cleared up, we can continue. So I had been DMing a 2nd edition campaign for a couple of years. I'm an old school mindset of hard battles and slow progression, so when I say that my group was mid-level, I need to clarify that this was a hell of an accomplishment. There hadn't been a PC death in a long time, and so my group had become pretty confident in their abilities. The group consisted of a human bandit, an elven cleric, who I've incorporated into my current world's lore as it had some of the best and most epic character development I've ever been privy to, a human mage, a human bard, a human samurai, played by Eric, a friend mentioned in another game, and Ross's human ninja. The halfling might have been a member of the group by that point, but I can't remember. Now, following their encounter with destroying an evil dragon's soul, that is definitely an uncomfortable Ross story I will get into some other time, the group was traveling through some frigid mountains trying to find a pass to a southern homeland of 2 of the PCs, the samurai and the ninja. They eventually come across a small community of humans in the midst of funeral preparations. A young girl in the village recently passed. Through conversation, the village elders reveal that they guard a sacred tomb that holds great power and great evil in turn. Occasionally, adventurers enter the tomb, but none leave. They are tasked to ensure no evil escapes. All too tempting, the group enters, which is all well and good as the tomb contained my most elaborate dungeon I've ever crafted. A multi-leveled puzzle and monster-filled labyrinth that featured a number of magic items to prepare them in facing a final deadly challenge, and a way to pass through the mountains. But that was besides the point. The group enters, and they struggle with a few puzzles while having some genuinely tough encounters. Sven the lore master is a feather I am particularly proud to have in my cap. Even if it led to the mage accidentally becoming an Ifrit, which seriously put a monkey wrench into my plans, but fair's fair. Through the dungeon, they had found 2 magical items designed to protect them against their final encounter. One was a ring that prevented life-draining attacks, and the other was some type of item that protected against cold-based attacks. This was over 10 years ago, you can't expect me to remember every detail, I mean, come on, cut me some slack. The 2 frontline PCs, the bandit and the samurai, each take 1. The bandit takes the ring of life-draining protection, and the samurai takes the cold thing. Just gonna call it a ring, though I'm pretty sure it wasn't a ring. They get to the final chamber in the dungeon and encounter a cryo-hydra and a wraith. Now, anyone who played old school D&D knows that there are a few ways to mess up an adventuring party than to throw a wraith at them. Every hit, without save, permanently drained experience levels. I had encountered one as a PC myself and went from level 9 to level 3. This can be devastating. I figured that a second threat to divert their attention, but a magic item to protect a primary target would make for a nice balance for a challenge. It would have been a nice balance. It would have, if only the PCs had thought things through for even a moment. The bandit, who is protected against life-draining attacks, made a straight line for the cryo-hydra. The samurai, protected against cold attacks, then went for the wraith. My friends were sometimes not burdened with an overabundance of sense. So the fight is a little rougher than expected. The samurai and the ninja die, but I am not a cruel DM. I taketh with one hand and giveth with another. In the loot, they find 2 scrolls, one of resurrection and one of reincarnation. To be as fair as they possibly can be, the party randomly chooses who gets what. The The samurai gets resurrected, and Ross's character gets reincarnated. To avoid him being reincarnated as a badger, I let him know that he will be reincarnated into the body of the nearest humanoid, which just so happens to be the body of the young Viking girl outside, which is perfect because he was playing a young girl to begin with, so I didn't plan it, but it worked out, right? Now this is where the horror begins. As Sophia might say, picture it, Sicily, 1922. Ross was the oldest among us in the group, the most mature, if you will. We wouldn't, but you might. A 30-year-old man sitting there on the couch, surrounded by friends, on the verge of tears, because his character is being reincarnated as something other than a teeny, tiny Japanese girl. Now, at that time in my life, I had never expected that there would be a point I would need to console someone 5 years my elder because they could no longer pretend to be a Japanese girl. The Scandinavian features of his ninja's new body were completely unacceptable. And we all just sat there, uncomfortable. So I decided to maybe show him a silver lining. Early in the dungeon, there had been carvings indicating that the dungeon was protected by bears. The reason for that is that the human clan were actually werebears. Congratulations, you're now a werebear, Ross, with all the benefits that come with it. Cool bear form, immunity to non-magical attacks, etc. It mattered not. If Ross couldn't pretend to be a Japanese girl, then what point did D&D even have? So we ended the session there. It seemed like a natural end to the day. Everyone kinda shuffled out of Ross and my apartment, and for the next few days, Ross indicated that he didn't think he'd play anymore, as the game was no longer fun for him. We played, and still do, minus Ross, bi-weekly, so about a week before the next session, I've prepared everyone that Ross might not be joining us further, to which everyone was as disappointed as I'm sure you would expect them to be. But then the hypotheticals start coming. Ross starts asking a few questions every here and there over a few days, thinking he's being cagey or clever. Are there magic items that let you look like somebody else? Are those effects permanent or temporary? Are there items that would change his appearance permanently if it wasn't meant to disguise him as someone specifically? If there isn't such an item, could one hypothetically be commissioned for enough gold, etc., etc.? I saw where this was going long before Ross shared his cleverly laid plans and was disappointed all the while. Ross isn't exactly a master of deception. Yes, Ross talked himself out of quitting D&D because he now had a new mission in life for his currently Scandinavian ninja. By the gods as his witness, he would be Japanese again. Cool, that's the important thing, I guess. With a single-minded determination I may have admired had the goal been anything other than what I thought it was, Ross set out to make his ninja Japanese again, and thus, using all the wealth his character had accumulated over a not insubstantial career, Ross commissioned a magic ring when they reached a major settlement. The cost was substantial as arcane magic was rare outside of a few areas. And thus did masters of arcane secrets and smiths, trained in lost arts, work together to craft a powerful new magic item, previously unseen in the world.
The legendary ring of being Asian!
Now, I've seen children open up Christmas gifts from Santa containing exactly what they'd asked for and seen less joy in their faces than how Ross looked when he got that ring. The only thing I can liken it to is if someone had been atheist their entire life and then, upon hearing their first sermon, realized that their entire life until that moment had been absent a critical piece, but was now made whole. It still saddens me that the concept of spiritual ecstasy will forever conjure the image of a pudgy nerd crammed into a Neo jacket like an overstuffed sausage, but life leads us all to sorts of places we never thought we would go. This isn't the most horrific of my Ross stories. Oh no, there's the equivalent of 2 TPKs still ahead. But this is the most Ross. Like, if I were to tell a D&D story to someone for the sole purpose of trying to define who Ross was, this would be it. A 30-year-old man mourning the loss of his Japanese-ness. And I still can't believe I let this crap go on. I'm not mad with myself, just disappointed. I expected more from me. And post. Aside from this story being both tragically pitiful and absolutely hilarious at the same time, it feels a little bit morally ambiguous in a weird way. People's characters are really important to them, and losing an integral part of what made you love your character that you put a lot of time into designing and progressing can feel really bad. And if this change happened in any other context than Ross temporarily loses his ability to fetishize Japanese girls in D&D, then I'm pretty sure that people would say that the DM is kinda being a tool. Am I excusing Ross from his obvious immaturity? Hell no. Am I saying the DM was in the wrong? Also no. In fact, the DM handled things pretty well, all things considered. In the end, the DM worked with Ross together, and he got to go back to playing his character in the end. And they all played happily ever after. Until the next story. Anyways, that's just my take, and I'm excited to hear yours. If you enjoyed this video, please do leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more stories just like this one. Till next time.